guys. Welcome and welcome, Rain. You are in charge of the Unscripted podcast, right?
Right. That is
Awesome.
correct.
Well, I am really happy to have you on here. We're going to be talking tonight about the history of pretty much the trade and the industry, correct?
Sure. That's what we said, right? No.
Yeah, that's what we
Yeah,
talked
no,
about.
is that what we said? No. Okay.
I think so. So I actually wanted to talk to you because when we were kind of talking pre-podcast, you had mentioned that you had been in the industry for quite some time. So about how long have you been doing this for?
Exotics, we'll say 88. But I started with domestics. So I mean my background is, I'll say this, like I had one side of my family that was farming animals and the other side that was doing like produce. So I was in the middle of that. So by the time I was 5, I had already been whelping litters and dragging hay and setting up heat lamps and learning some of the little tricks of the trade then. And but I also bounced around a lot for the first 7 years of my life, living with different people, different relatives. So from the time that I would be with those people, it was always something related to that. But eventually, I was sent to go live with an aunt of mine in '88 in DC. And they were setting up youth programs. Her and my other aunt were setting up youth programs for all the inner city kids. And I wasn't obviously legally not old enough to work, but since since they ran the programs and they created them, programs that still run to this day, I got to go to work in a sense. So I volunteered. I got paid, but the place where I worked at, obviously I didn't work for them. They got free labor.
Right.
And my cousin knew that there was a pet store, like literally a block away from the headquarters of this youth program. So yeah, they literally walked me down there, like 7 years old. Like they walked me down there. Like I hadn't even been with this one. I didn't even really know this woman that well. And walked me down there, go in the pet store. And I remember like the first thing I walk in and there's like a 250 gallon terrarium full of every type of Europlatus. I had no idea what I was looking at though. I'm just like amazed to see all these geckos, of which I didn't even know what a gecko really was at that time.
Right.
So yeah, they're like talking and doing some conversation, and then they looking over at me and they look back at each other and they shake their heads, and then she just like says, yeah, you can stay, and then they leave. Well, she leaves and they just leave me there. And so I was
He
there.
just left you.
So they just left me. So
They said this is where he needs to be.
So yeah, so 5 days a week. That's what I did for like I had a full-time job. And then the owner's son was there, who was a couple years older than me. So that's where it started, like there. And so now, like, because I've told this story on a couple other podcasts, and some people cringe when I say this, but the first job they had me do, and I don't think this happens anymore. But this was the 80s. So
right, different times.
Right. So the first job they had me do was stunning mice. I don't even know if some of the newer people even know what that is.
Right.
But that was my first job. Was they took me in the back, and his son came out with 2 5-gallon buckets of mice that were alive, and they had this wooden table back there that was like brown splattered, and I had no idea what he was about to show me. And he picks one up and he, and puts it in the bag, and he's like, put it in the freezer. And then when I opened the freezer, there was this huge Parsons chameleon in there that was like this big, that had come in and had died. And so they kept it in the freezer. So yeah, I saw so many things then. And it was a very different time. I would say that I've seen it kind of like, I remember back then, the goal for me and for people around me, that was when you got an animal, was to try to do your best with the information that we had, which wasn't a lot compared to now, to replicate that environment. Like that was a big thing back then. And then somehow in the midst of,
extremely limited.
very limited. And then the tub system came into play. And then that flipped everything, and not necessarily for the better. It allowed people to purchase more expensive animals and then to cut corners on the husbandry and the rearing and things like that. But now I see some of the newer people, a good portion of the newer people that are coming in is like they're going straight to bioactive or naturalistic, and I think that's a good thing. I think some of them do kind of they got to calm down with their aggressiveness, because there's a lot of, I mean, it's the, I'm not, I'll say this because this is my, obviously this is the first time that I've done this with you, and I have a lot of content out there, and you've had Amy Benzie, that's my homie. When Amy first started, like before she even started going to South America, like me and Amy were talking, and she was telling me like, well, this is what I want to do. If you ask her, she'll tell you, I was trying to start a reptile registration and pushing for more insurance for us when I met Amy. Anthony and Jason from Gecko Exchange, I've been on there a couple times. Like those are my homies. Like, so they'll tell you, like, I'm real like cut and dry, no nonsense. Like, it is what it is. But
I respect that though.
I'm not a reptile guy. I'm not a dog guy. I'm an animal guy. Like I've done the same three things my entire life, and that is animals, cannabis, and culinary. That's what I do. You talk to anyone about me, that's what they're going to tell you. So that's it. I don't, now I don't even do anything anymore. This is what I do. Most of my stuff, the content that I do, you don't really see animals a lot in the background. I don't do anything like necessarily like animal or breed specific a lot, because there's just so much of that. But
yeah,
I do see some people coming in, and it's kind of reminding me of how it was when I came into it. Unfortunately, there's still just this level of toxicity in all the animal communities, but the reptile community is crazy. Like it is
wild.
It is.
Yeah, I have seen some savage attacks on people within that community, and sometimes you just gotta think like, hey, how are people going to learn if you keep condemning them?
Well, and that's the thing. You have this battle of the ages, literally. Like, right. I get a lot of people that hit me up like, oh, the older guys, they won't talk to me. They said, you'll talk to me, and not just with reptiles, it's with the canines and other stuff that I'm involved in too. And you're right. But then I talked to some of the older guys, and they're like, yeah, but the way they came at me was, like that. And I'm like, yeah, so there's got to be a balance somewhere. But
there has to. You got to find that middle ground.
Right. But there's been a transition. It's like I said, it started one way. I saw it kind of decline, and I've taken breaks here and there. And so now I see it kind of going like back up, but the industry standard. And that's what I've known for not being a fan of. It's like anyone who's seen any of my stuff, like that's not my thing in any way, shape, and form. So when things kind of flipped, I made sure that I maintained, like what I was doing, but I also made sure that I evolved when a lot of stuff stayed stagnant.
Right.
So that's where I am now.
I think that's incredibly important, though, is to evolve while everything around you is still sitting in one place, because that's how you continue to grow, and that's how you expand, and that's how you gain more knowledge with anything you do, whether it's reptiles or dogs or cats or horses,
Right.
Definitely. And you've obviously seen some major changes. Do you feel like a lot of the changes are driven more by like science or status?
Well, okay, so let me say this. There is definitely a line between herpetology and herpetoculture. And I know, so I minored in animal biology and genetics. So I have a lot of friends on the science side. And 80% of them don't want anything to do with herpetoculture. And the problem with herpetoculture is they don't even know that. A lot of them don't even know that. There obviously has been a crossover, because I know some people who were herpetoculture and then got into science. So you have so many levels and different factions and different types of the way that it can go and that it cannot go. And it's easily to be offended and to offend people. There is definitely a level of status now. social media is definitely creating this false sense of hope, this false sense of reality, taken away from actuality. Like there's a huge thing. It's like, okay, so like I have this grow tent here, right?
Right.
And I know since the birth of Amazon, people in the last decade or so have started using grow tents to keep their reptiles and amphibians in, and that's
I
great. I'm
noticed a
all for that.
lot of that recently.
Right. And right. So I just told you I've been growing cannabis for about 25 years. I've been
Yeah.
using grow tents long before they were ever available to the public to keep reptiles in. So I could sit here if I wanted to be that person and be like, oh, I was the first one to ever do it. And it was just me and no one else. And then, of course, and I'm not going to say necessarily on this show, but just generalizing, someone will be in the comments like, no, it wasn't. It was so and so and so and da 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 da. And I've been on a lot of those lives where and sometimes like I'll say something and it'll be a general statement. Like I remember I was on one, it was a chondro podcast because I used to be heavy into the green tree pythons. And I was just, and what I said was, people don't do research the way they used to do research. And immediately, like 2 or 3 guys in the comments were like, yeah, they do. So-and-so just wrote a book. And I'm like, bro, you didn't even listen to what I said. I said, they don't do research as much or as way. I didn't say people stop, but that's where we are. Everybody, I mean, I've got a 10-foot cobra here. I mean, that's impressive enough.
Oh, absolutely.
That I do venomous. So, but I think having these animals in itself is impressive. But
for sure,
some people now it's like the green tree python guys. They're not happy with the animal anymore because they want it to be every color but green. So this snake in its natural existence is no more it's not captivating to people anymore. And as the newer people come in, that's what they're being introduced to. They're not being introduced to the animal in its natural state. They're being introduced to the animal in its captive state. Now, I did a podcast, 2 podcasts actually, on the same topic, talking about how we have created breeds in the reptile community. Oh, and the comments went crazy.
I bet they were chewing up and spitting out.
But it is what it is. I mean, no one was able to disprove what I said. And that's one thing. And that's another thing that we have. Again, it goes to status is anyone can get on the keyboard and type and say something, and they can say you're wrong and never have to give a fact. And that's generally what happens. So I said that, and then I explained it. And not only did I explain it, I gave examples like the goldfish. That is a breed of carp. And that started in 200 AD with the Chinese. That was the first selectively bred animal on the planet. The dog was the first domesticated
very interesting animal.
But yeah, and so it is still, the fish is still the most widely traded animal on the face of this earth.
Wow.
At that point in time, when I believe it was the Qing dynasty where it started, and then every dynasty after that did like a restoration or a refining or even a reconstruction of the goldfish, which is why you see so many different types of goldfish. But it started with the mutation, and then they selectively bred it, and then it became a breed. That's what happens. Well, that's what happens with our cows, our horses, our Canis familiar, and everything else. Your chickens, they're breeds of chickens now. They're breeds of cows, they're breeds of horse. But the reptile people do not want to admit that a bumblebee ball python is a breed of ball python because you have selectively bred this animal against everything that it stands for.
Yeah.
And so I'm not the most well-liked but I'm very well known. A lot of people say they don't know me. I've helped a lot of people. A lot of people have my animals right in their collections, and they'll tell you they don't because, I'm not a yes man. So you don't see me on a ton of podcasts, but you see me on the right ones.
And I like the fact that you actually said that about the breeding and the different breeds of ball python, because that is something that I have noticed we have pulled away from completely. I have 2 ball pythons right now. I have a classic and I have a cinnamon. And the cinnamon is being taken care of. A friend got sick, long story short. But they're very basic snakes, you know, I think they are the most beautiful ball pythons I've ever seen because they are the OGs. They're the originals. Like that is the snake that you want. And so when talking to people about this, it's like you even risk, I think, what is it, the spider ball pythons, I believe.
Yeah.
They're just known to have that head wobble, and they all have neurological issues. So I even
Right.
question too is like, how many times are we going to breed these
Well,
animals to the
you
point
sound like
of
me,
health?
right? You sound like me. But when you say that out loud, you literally just attacked. What you just said was an attack on a ton of people, and they take it
Right.
personally, even though you were specifically speaking about animals. And what you said is, I've said it a million times, is why are you still breeding what is it, Lucy carpet pythons or whatever,
Right.
whatever the mutations are. It's like I did for anyone who watches animals at home, then they would have saw the breeding reptile master class that I did on there. And I talked about, culling and things like that, and what you could or could not be doing, and what you should and shouldn't be doing. And I'm like, well, at this point, these animals are here, and you can say bioactive, you can say naturalistic, this, that, and the other, but ultimately, you can never give them that because, and someone really got mad at me, and I was like, look, man, this is not personal, but what you're saying is not realistic, but I appreciate the effort. But if I want to give my forest cobra the best experience of Africa, then I'm going to need some elephants and some hippos, and he might die. He could possibly die in here. That's life in Africa, and that's not
Right.
what's happening at home. So, and then there's always the breeding in captivity. It's like, oh, well, that's all they know. Well, that's all that you give them. If you feed your kid pizza for its entire life and you try to give him a cheeseburger, it's going to be a little hard. You know what I mean?
Right.
No matter how delicious that cheeseburger may be, he's not going to want it because he's pizza guy. He's pizza face. So,
Absolutely. And that kind of, honestly, that kind of goes back to last week's episode. We touched on that. I was speaking with Savannah Noland, and we were talking about, what was it, just enclosures and bioactive and things like that. And we even talked about, like, no matter how hard you try, you can make a beautiful, great, like close to perfect setup. Like it's never going to be perfect because we just don't have access to all of that stuff.
Right. And some people liked, and I get it and I understand it because I was there at one point in time, like trying to get and with the limited resources. Like now, it's like people ask a lot of questions that they can find out just by picking up their phone and like having the weather for whatever animals you have in your phone. And I've been telling people that. Or I mean, I don't know, it's I tend to get myself in a lot of trouble. Actually, my co-producer is in here, Doug. That's my guy. Shout out to Doug.
What's up, Doug?
I definitely see now I'm gonna have to bring you on so we can continue this on my show. Because
absolutely.
you're saying what I'm saying, and my thing is like, it's not how many times you're gonna do it. Why? That's my question. If you are a breeder, I'm a breeder. I have probably bred more species of animals than anybody like honestly, like collectively, not just reptiles.
I would bet on it.
A lot of stuff, farm animals, plants. I mean, I have 5 species of snail and 2 species of slug here, because
That's
I have
rad.
snail. I have snail eating snakes here. So I have like niches within the niche, but
right.
It's, if I'm a breeder of anything, why would I want to sell you something that has problems that I know about up front? It's like there's no structure within the community, and I've had this beef, and it's open. There's nothing here that I would say that I haven't already said. I've a lot of people have a problem with me because I said something about US art, and it wasn't a stab. What I said was, I'm about progression, and I've been around since before US art. I've been here since before Reptile Magazine. I've been here since before Bushmaster Farms, all that stuff. I saw that happen. And I remember when Andrew was running US Arc and certain things happened. And I understand. I don't know if that's what really happened or if not, but I do know that Andrew had a plan. and it didn't get off the way because of for whatever that beef was. I'm not going to talk about that here. So it didn't
Right.
happen, and then things changed hands. In my mind, I was always thinking that USARK was going to be like the AKC for reptiles and amphibians, like privately owned. Like, in my opinion, we should be at the forefront of animals being kept in captivity. We have the most species. So that means we have the most money to bring in, and we get hit by legislation more than anyone.
We do.
No one gets attacked more than us. And the problem is because we don't self-regulate. And they've been telling us to do it for 20 years. And we're like, nah, not gonna do it, not gonna do it, not gonna do it. But we want everything. You're also speaking to someone who's been on the import and export. I've seen them catching the tree monitors out of the trees and the green tree pythons and putting them in the water bottle. I've been there.
Oof.
So I know how much the animals cost versus how much you're paying for them. And I know all the ins and outs. And when you don't regulate, that's when the government steps in, and they continue to step in until you piss them off enough. And then what people don't know is, because you're not hearing about it, is there's a lot of subtle things that are happening right now. They just, like, IATA just changed standards. Shipping for canines just changed. You can't ship a dog less than 6 months old. Like, they're trying to slowly but surely, with all the loose reptiles and all the rash of dog attacks in the last 2 years, it's going crazy. And all that stuff gets documented. So in my mind, a registration with insurance means like $100 million a year. If AKC brings in $60 to $80 million a year, I know this for a fact, then I know that we could double that. That's the money you need to fight wars. And so when I started speaking out about that, everybody started twisting my words. Like, oh, he's this or he's that. And I'm like, bro, I never said any of that stuff. What I said was, we all need to step it up, because even a lot of people who were saying that, like, bro, you haven't given these people $1. Whether how they use it, it's not even the point. But the point is, you were also like, oh, it doesn't affect my animal, so I'm not going to worry about it until it does.
Right.
So now, when everything's on the chopping block, now people have, like, it's gotten extremely aggressive. And I know a lot of people have come to me and it's like, oh, it's this and it's that. And I'm kind of glad that you're saying stuff, because other people are scared too. I was like, bro, you shouldn't be scared to say anything, but you should be supporting them. But we need more at this point in time.
Right.
If I've been here since '88, they started bringing reptiles over here heavily in 1940. I really know the trade very well.
I was going to ask you at what point they started importing.
Yeah, 1940 is when it started. So from 1940 to 1985, you know how many animals were brought in and how many animals we killed? At least 80% of them went out in the trash because we didn't have any information. And yeah, there were people breeding and there were people getting stuff done. Guys up in Canada were doing stuff, guys down here, other people in other countries were getting, but somehow something happened in like 86 and captive breeding just clicked. All the animals that you see that have mutated, those were all the original animals that were started with us. The leopard geckos, the fat-tailed geckos, the boas, the ball pythons, the sand boas, all the animals that have mutated. I saw all those animals come in. When I'm looking at them like, what is this? What is that? Like, white-lip python was probably the first real exotic python that I saw, in the shop. And remember, they had to keep the glass covered because they had two of them. They would just strike. And that's when I learned about lip rot and, things like that. And dude, these guys back then were incubating eggs with no incubator. So I learned that stuff. Like, I don't need an incubator. And I'm talking snake eggs, not gecko eggs.
Wow.
And they were showing me this stuff, but and so coming up in that and reminiscing on that, and being in the canine world, and then having a cousin who is deep in the horse world, and we're talking about pedigrees and true bloodlines, that's what I was thinking was going to happen for the reptile world. But it didn't. But we say that it did. But when you start talking about what a breeding program is, there's just a lot of inbreeding and scatterbreeding.
Right.
And all that stuff, all those animals from 30 years ago, now you're starting to see the effects of all that inbreeding 30 years later. But your favorite people told you it was okay to do that.
Right. Exactly.
they told you that it was okay. And Doug's
I say
family,
Doug just chimed in. Yeah.
yeah, so his people used to own a pet store. We're from the same area. Me and Doug
Okay.
from the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. But Doug's people were really big into aquatics. But yeah, so and Doug is right. That was another thing, like parasites. Like even now, we're still misdiagnosing and not treating our reptiles and amphibians correctly. Like now I get a lot of calls, people asking me for this, actually, like, where am I getting this? Or so-and-so said that you had this. And most people, they've never heard of it. And I'm just like, I don't understand, with all the reptile stuff that I've seen happen and not happen and that should be happening. Like, how are we still using farm animal products for reptiles when we are saying that reptiles are related to birds? So are reptiles really related to birds, or is that something that we just say? Like conservation, preservation, is that something we just say to get the animals? Because I don't see very many people doing that. But this powder, yeah, I'm that guy. So
I love it. You're good. Solid.
But this, everybody just uses the form of Panacure that they sell online. That Panacure only treats for one specific species of worm in one specific area, the intestines. This treats for the intestines and in the lungs, and it also treats for 3 other types of worms, and it's water soluble. Why are we still using Panacure? This is a product made for birds. Right. This guy also has respiratory infection powder. He also, I have all this stuff here. I've been using this for years. A tiny dab of this to a gallon of water, I can treat everything in my room for 2 weeks almost. And I use air stones in all of my pumps because I don't like water changes. It's annoying. So I got a lot of air stones in all my stuff. But stuff like that is like, how come everybody doesn't know that? Or with the insurance, like, what's up with the insurance? There's one place that offers us insurance and it doesn't really work the way we need it to. And, but when I say that stuff, people are like, oh, like, I remember, I don't know, one guy was like, oh man, this guy's got great ideas, but he's got a hidden agenda. And this was a guy who was supposed to be like a good friend of mine. But as soon as I said something he didn't like, now we can't be friends.
It flipped the script.
Yep. So, but yeah, he's like, I was 100%. Like, damn, what's my hidden agenda though? Right. Which is, yeah, I'm still waiting. I'm not seeing it. I'm still waiting for that. But yeah, it's just, I'm just not a yes man is what it is. But yeah, I don't know. What else, Meg, what else do you have for me? What else?
No, I
actually have some good questions.
Yeah, no, you're hitting a lot of good topics here. We were talking about the importing and exporting and like when that started. When did you really start to see those really beautiful normal species that we originally knew? When did you start to see them shift into more of what they call morphs, what we would call breeds of, different reptiles?
So the start of it was the hybridization. The jungle corn was the first. It wasn't the first hybrid python. I think the first hybrid snake, not python. The first hybrid snake that I can find that it was man-made was the scrub python into the carpet python in Australia Zoo in the late 70s, early 80s. That was a project that they were doing. But the first hybrid that I know was the jungle corn, the corn snake to the king snake.
Okay.
That was the start of it, but obviously that's not a mutation. And I say that was the start of it because that's just opening the door for acceptance. So about 93, I believe 94 is when that albino ball python hit. And then I remember that Bob Clark. I remember because the internet, the government just gave us the internet. It was dial up,
I remember
all that. All that. And I was at school because I didn't have internet at home. But, luckily I went to private school. So we had internet there in the library. Nice. And I remember like looking on the websites and like, man, he was showing like the bat eaters and like the hybrids, the retics, the Burmese cross. And, looking at this albino ball python and I was just like, man, I'm never going to be able to afford one of those, and then not soon after, the Lucy ball python popped up on another website. I can't remember who that was. and it was like 40 grand. And I was like, well, another snake I'll never be able to get. And so, and it's funny is because I had already had a green tree python before those two snakes had come out, because the pet shop that I was working at, I worked there for a couple years, but I went there, like, I take all my homies there until they closed. We would all like get on the train and we'd go down to Tinley Town and go get something to eat. And then we go to the pet shop, and I bought a green tree from there. So I'd had like some nice stuff like early on. It didn't live very long because I didn't know what I was doing. I did what they
different time.
I did what they told me, and
right.
It ate once and it died 45 days later. So I was like, okay, well, I'll try that again. But I lost. What was I saying? I lost my thought. And plus, I'm a burnout, so I smoke a lot.
Listen, I do too. I do it all the time. Like, if you watch the other episodes, I will stop in the middle and I'll be like, what was I talking about again?
Yeah, normally, it's just people, they get mad at me. I did a panel like 2 Fridays ago. It was like a debate, and the lady or somebody got mad because one of the guys like brought his fan club. But I exposed him on live. This guy's got like 80,000 followers, and I exposed him for being a fraud online. And so they're like, this guy is, he's a pothead and he's high. Like, and I'm like, now I wasn't a pothead before I put your man out there. Now all of a sudden I'm just this pothead that doesn't know what he's talking about. So
that's always how it goes. You say something they don't like, and it's like, now we're not friends.
Well, yeah, no, that happens to me quite often. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Most of the people I talk to are women anyway, so it's not a big deal for me. So I get to hear all the stories about all the men, how y'all get harassed, and all the unwanted pictures y'all get from men and things like that. So yeah.
It's a good time. No.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, we have a sponsor reel. If you are comfortable, we're going to take a quick 30-second break and run the sponsor reel and then come right back to it.
Do your thing.
All right, Chris, hit us with the sponsors.
Lights come on, pulse in the air, we unite. Cold-blooded got 5 feet in the night. Cold-blooded caffeine, fueling the fight. Reptile crew got our backs tight. Thank you, fam, for keeping us all. CMB reptiles rolling with soul. Hold no soul, lifting the goal. Together we burn like burning coal. Elevate more fries in the show. Irresistible pythons letting it flow. Battery crew, yeah, we watch them go. Indigo without co set the glow. Shut up feeders with shut up feeders. Under the rock with cold-blooded hitters. Ship your reptiles, make life better. South Bay reptiles through every weather. Blue Pong, Shaman, Blue Tongue Republic. Arc adventures, riding Republic. No fakes, no breaks, we're here to publish. Taking it higher, dreams embellished. Sponsors love through beats we rise. Show it thanks met under the skies. Unite the world, reptile ties. Cold blood, warm hearts, no disguise.
All right, I just gotta tell you, Chris, every time that sponsor reel plays, I'm just over here silently jamming. Solid.
Who wrote that song?
I know, right? I really like that. But we're back, and I actually had another question. I was sitting here looking over what I had written down in the middle of having a party to myself. When did we start seeing more regulations around the ownership and the sales of really just any exotic animal in general?
Well, that started in the 90s, but they weren't sure how to put it into effect. But that's when they were starting to try to draft stuff up. We were bringing animals over heavy. I mean, I have the numbers, the actual numbers.
What's an estimate? Could you estimate the numbers?
Oh, on a yearly basis, just the animals that came into the United States alone was from 94 to 98, there was between 20 and 35 million reptiles every year. Where are all those animals? Reptiles live a long time. Most of them. So, and that's why when you're talking about breeding programs and bloodlines, I don't know how familiar you are with the canine world, but I could,
let's say semi.
With Doug, if me and Doug could sit here and I could say the name of a dog and we could talk about that dog for a day, a week, like his
Yeah.
offspring, how he contributed to the breed, everything he did or didn't do, why this dog was this, why this dog was that. Name me one reptile or one reptile bloodline. I'll wait.
Right. I can't.
Nobody can. Well, they start naming off, oh, so-and-so, like, dude, that's not a bloodline. Show me the pedigree. Well, that's not a bloodline.
Right.
Get out of here with that crap. Like, that's not how you breed animals, dude. You don't just breed brother and sister because that's how they were sold to you. Like, I don't even know why we're selling brother and sister pairs still. Like, that's something that I always thought was weird back in the day. Like, oh, you got a pair. And I'm like, not really, not a breedable pair. They're related. Why would you want to breed those animals? But almost 80% of the reptiles in the game are inbred. Generational inbred. That's why I said now, 30, 40 years down the road, you're starting to see problems with specific species now, because now it started, because just because you bought it from Joe Schmo over here and you got the other one from Jose Pastel over here, I guarantee you somewhere along the line, it's going to come back. And so when you're breeding them back, you're just putting all that stuff back together. But yeah, it's a common thing. Some communities in the reptile world are better, in amphibia world are better than in others. In the snake world, it's whatever. They don't care. It's whatever. The gecko people, you do see a lot of unrelated pairs. You know, I don't think in the lizard world I ever see anybody selling pairs a lot. And if they are, they're generally say these are unrelated pairs. So shout out to the gecko people, the lizard people in general.
That is very, very true.
But the snake people, it's whatever. It's whatever. Which is why almost everything I have here is wild caught. Because I don't want that trash. I'm sorry. Because I'm looking at it from a breeder standpoint. And looking at it from a breeder standpoint, it's trash. And I don't want it in my house. I don't want to breed it. I don't, I come from I have a very strong canine background. I don't breed it if it's not right, and I'm not going to sell it if it's not right, because that is my responsibility.
As a breeder, that is 100%.
People can get mad at this or that. Like, I don't. If you ever seen Rush Hour when Jackie Chan was talking to Chris Tucker, he's like, I don't care. I'm here for the girl. That's me. I'm here for the animals. I don't care what you say, what you think. You come pay my mortgages and all that stuff, and then we can talk about what.
Then we can talk about it.
Until then, I'm not. It's nothing personal. I'm only here. Like, if I'm saying something about you, it's dealing with animals, because I don't know most of these people. Right. So I can't have a personal problem with anybody because I don't even know you. You know what I mean? So
it's all based off animals, that animal, how it's cared for, etc., so on and so forth.
That's all I care about. But social media has flipped it. I mean, you have issues now of, it's a problem to have female reptile keepers, gay reptile keepers, black reptile keepers, old reptile keepers, fat reptile keepers, skinny reptile keepers. Like, it's a problem. And I've been saying stuff about it for a while. And it's because this is not what I ever expected. Obviously, I didn't expect the internet, and I didn't expect the ball python to come in like 1,000 different colors either in 1993. I would have never thought that we would be here in any way, shape, and form and fashion of the future. But I really thought that we were going to be a lot further, and those regulations could have set up an actual structural system where we could have had more control over legislation, to go back to what you were saying, than as of right now is basically competing with legislation to, like, oh, we're this list or that list. They want to give what's the list they call it? I can't remember, but basically what you can and can't have, the approval list, and this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, it's our fault because we didn't self-regulate. We didn't set up the registries. And I think because we didn't have enough people who understood what it was and how it needed to work, because a lot of times when I say registration to people, they automatically think government. Right. Automatically think government. I'm like, dude,
that's AKC, immediately where the head goes to.
Every AKC, time. UKC, there's no dog or cat or horse or rabbit or rat or bird registration that has anything to do with the government other than writing those people a check so they will shut the hell up and leave them alone. The reptile community refuses to write that check. So that's why we keep getting hit. That's what they just want you to pay them. Just pay the people. You got 170 species down in Florida that they've already said you owe us $3 million a year for. And so we show up to the meetings with no check. I'm going to ban your stuff too. From legislation in, I'm going to shut it down too. Where's my check? Like, where is my check, people? Everybody else is paying us. So you think you're not going to pay? Come on. And there's so much money in our community. Come on, look, they get mad at me when I say this, but that lizard, this tree monitor sells anywhere from retail for $1,500 to $3,000. Even for a wild caught animal, you still pay about $2,000. I know for a fact that that animal costs $6 American in the tree. I know this for a fact. And then they bring it back over here to you. I can show you a video. I can send it to you right now of 22 baby Boelen's pythons sent to me from one of my contacts in Indonesia with the date on it.
Wow.
With what they offered me, I tried to buy every single one of them, but they're protected. I don't know anybody with permits for Boelen. Could I have cleaned up? Hell yeah. I wouldn't have even have charged what everyone else is charging, but I mean, since I didn't get them, I can sit here and say it, but they offered me $1,000 for each one of those snakes. Hell yeah, $1,000. Let me get them all right now. I want them all. I tried for 2 months to get those animals over here. Couldn't do it. I would have sold them for probably $5,000-$6,000 a piece. Those snakes would have been gone in 72 hours. So that's
was there a reason? Is it because they were protected?
Well, they're protected, and that was basically like maybe a nest raid, or they found a nest, or they found a nest hatching. So how it works is about 90% of the animals that you are seeing that come over here, they leave as farm bred animals, and they're not farm bred animals. It is easier to go catch animals than it is to breed animals. Are there farms that breed animals? Yeah, they do breed specific stuff over there. But when you've got a demand for 4,000 green tree pythons a year, you're not filling that demand on a farm. Plus, half the time you're getting lied to about the localities anyway. Like, I don't know. I think people in the States tend to think still, and I used to think this way back growing up, it's like a lot of us think that people in other countries are like dumb and they don't have like technology and cell phones, so they don't know what's up. Like, bro, they're running game on you just like you're running game on them. So when you say that Fact or Tamika locality, whatever is popping, then everything they catch is going to be Tamika or Fact. And your ass don't know because you ain't never been over there. So you only know what I tell you. Right. And I tell you whatever I need to tell you if I'm that type of guy or girl to sell my animals. So so now you could end up like a famous guy and have a whole wall full of what you think are Noon 4 Island green tree pythons, and then they're not, because that's what your guy told you.
And that right there actually really goes back to what you had said earlier about people not doing as much research nowadays. Like, you're not going to know what you're getting into if you don't do the research on what you're getting into.
Right. Well, it's like a lot of dog breeders, a lot of people in general, like a lot of dog breeders now, they don't know their dogs because most of them spend 80% of the time in the kennel. Like, the interaction between the breeder and the seller is dying, because I can buy a snake or a lizard or even a dog or a cat, and I don't even have to talk to anyone anymore.
Yeah. Which is wild to me. Yes, absolutely.
I had to look in the newspaper, the Trading Post. I had to get a ride. I had to look, man, I had to sell a lot of weed back in the day to get the stuff that I wanted. Like, it is what it is.
I know a lot of people who did. Absolutely.
So I put in a lot of legwork to get those animals. I had every issue of Reptile Magazine, Bird, Aquatics, Canine, Dog Fancy, all that stuff that existed, because that was all that I had. That was all that we had. So putting in the legwork and getting that animal was extreme. I remember, so there's a newer YouTuber, a guy that he considers me to be a mentor, a younger guy who's into venomous, and we were having a conversation. He was like, I was really impulsive, coming up, and he was like, you know, I know we were all like that. And I was like, no, I wasn't. I was like, because I was barely allowed to get anything.
That's where I'm at. Yes.
So when I got something, when I heard that yes, like I had to make sure that's what I wanted, because
that confirmation needed to be there.
Oh man,
100%.
When a snake got loose in my house, I wasn't saying a word, because if they found out, I would never be able to get anything else again. You know, like, and I used to bring stuff home and sneak stuff in the house all the time. But yeah. So like, but like I said, times were different. The whole legislation didn't really kick in. They didn't really start taking that stuff serious until like the Lacey Act. I mean, they were trying to put stuff in play, but they were still. I remember, me and my homies went down to Florida and they brought alligators back on the plane, and one got loose on our flight. So. So there was all kind of stuff, and I knew some of these guys, some of these smugglers. I won't say their name. Like some of these guys, you heard about them on Discovery Channel. I knew some of these people. You know what I mean? Like I knew a lot of people. Like because like I said, so my background and how I got into it in a sense was very unorthodox. Like by the time I was 13, I was teaching adults our age now at the botanical gardens about the local reptiles and amphibians, because I kept getting caught trying to steal animals from the botanical gardens. And so like the third time they were like, bro, like, come on, man. Like, we don't want to have to call the cops. Like, we don't, your people, we don't have to get you in trouble. Like, why do you keep coming back? And I'm like, listen, bro, my aunt, bro, she won't let me have any of this stuff. I'm like almost in tears. Like, I don't even care about me getting in trouble. I'm like, I'm there. I got like a water snake.
I just want this animal.
Right. And they're like, all right, we'll tell you what. You come back here on Saturday and we got a class here. And they're like, we're trying to teach it and we don't know anything. And so, yeah, this is in the heart of Southeast DC. This is the ghetto where the botanical gardens is.
Yeah.
Like,
that's deep in there.
River. So, like, yeah, so 13, like, bro, I'm walking around and I'm like 5'8" now. I was like 3'8" then. So I was just a little kid. And it was even fun. I remember my aunt, bro. She came to pick me up one time and she was like, man, she's like, man, I never in my day thought I'd see a little black kid walking around with 6 grown white people telling them what to do. She's like, so. But that's what I was doing. So by the time I was 14, I was a junior camp counselor at the school that I went to, because it was out in the woods. And there's a picture of me in the yearbook where I ditched my people in my canoe, because so I got bit that year by a copperhead. And
oh shoot.
Yeah, we were in the canoe in the pond. So where I went to school was on like 50 acres of, you would never know, to this day, you would never know there was a school back there. Like it is like in the woods. I mean, like you'd be sitting there doing your work, like deer walking by, fox. Like, I mean, this is like a really ritzy place. I mean, we had pools. We had 3 pools. We had an equestrian program. I was archery champion 2 years running there. So like we had it all.
Get it.
Oh yeah, no, we had like everything you could think of. And then there was a summer camp there as well. Like, I mean, the kids drove better cars than the faculty. Like by the time we were 16, like everybody there had like a Lexus Infinity. Like it was that type of school. And I used to work there in the summer, except for me, I had to take the bus. Plus, I spent all my money on animals. I didn't all my cousins were getting clothes or getting their license. Like I was like, nah, bro, I'm trying to get my passport. So as soon as I turn 18, I can like go overseas. Like,
right, exactly. I'm like, I'm getting that snake,
But yeah, I remember we were in the canoe paddling, and I'm there, got my 2 kids in there, and we're life jacket up. We're in there, and then I just see these bands just break water, and like immediately, like I like throw my paddle and I jump in the water, and it's like almost waist deep. I couldn't tell if it was a Nerodira or an Echistrodon. I didn't even care. And I just grabbed it. And as I'm grabbing it, it turns around and it bites me like right here on my side. It was a dry bite, luckily. But
Thank God.
the best thing about that, and I gotta go when I go back home here in a couple weeks, go to that school. So someone's mom was just there taking pictures for the yearbook and just happened to snap the picture of when the snake was turning to bite me, and it made it in the yearbook for next year. So yeah, so I'm literally like my entire. Dude, I used to get chicks from like my reptile knowledge. I mean, I still do, but
Right. Oh, I'm sure.
I still do. Yeah, I mean, no, I'm not gonna say that out loud, but no, I used to that guys used to challenge me. They used to try to make me look bad, like this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and so they would like get the encyclopedias or like the big reptile books, and they would like try to. That's how they would do it. Would be like they would tell me what the snake looked like, and then I'd have to tell them what it was, and like every time I'd get it, so stuff
Just
like that.
piss them off even more, you know.
Well, yeah, that's literally all I've been doing. Like, is so by the time I turned 18, like I actually had a chance to go to a herpetology program in not Costa Rica, in Belize.
Okay.
But for other reasons, I did not go, and then I ended up going to school for architecture. So that was a whole nother thing. But yeah, like that's all I've been doing. That's pretty much like it's just straight animal with me, which is why I get in so many arguments and so many like heated conversations with people, is because like it's not a hobby for me. Like I don't like go to McDonald's, or I don't go to be a welder, or I don't go be an engineer. Just what I've been doing every day. Every day.
Right.
That's what I do. Like
This
I had
is
a
your
wrestler
life.
for a while. Yeah, this is my life.
Right.
And that's what I'll do. Like I don't sell or breed anything anymore for the public. Like it's hard to get animals for me. One, I don't have anything for sale unless I sell snails. Anyone who wants snails, or if you need roaches, red runners and millipedes, but that's about it. That's about all. You can go to my
I do
eBay
love me
store.
some millipedes. I do love me some millipedes.
So
That's rad. See, and that's the thing, you said something about social media is like, I feel like social media, like you said, has had one of the worst impacts on the entire industry. I love how Chris just came.
Yeah. Hey, it's a curse sometimes, bro. When you don't want their boyfriends in their DMs, like, dude, please, just stop. Like, bro, I didn't even know you existed. I didn't even know. Who are you? I didn't even know. I didn't even know.
I'm dying.
Yeah, they swear they thought I was going to be a comedian. Everybody, they swear that I was going to be a comedian. And
You should have been.
yeah, that's what I hear that a lot. So, I'm like, bro, I'm not telling jokes though. I just don't care. Like that's like,
right.
Well, yeah, no, yeah, Chris, it's not always the best.
It could be a blessing and a curse all at once.
Yeah, man, so, but yeah, no, social media, because now everybody's got a title, everybody's got a fancy title, like
right.
You're like,
I got one.
What's yours?
You got Megan Fangs. I mean, everyone's
Megan.
That's what you're talking about, right?
Well, no, not that. That's no. I mean, well, it's like people like ultimate supreme snake killer god 5, 6, 7.
Oh, you're talking about, yeah. Okay, I feel you. I see what you're putting down. Okay, yeah.
Master snake breeder since 1894 of all time. Nobody can top me.
Right.
Ever. I've been on every galaxy. Like, wow, bro. You only breed ball pythons though.
Right. It's like they see themselves as like the Thor of the reptile world.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It's the dog people are worse. The dog guys are worse too, man. Man. They got everybody's got the most dangerous dog that doesn't do anything, and I now I just get paid to talk about dogs. No more dogs here. I had my retired litter last year. That was it. And here's the thing, right? And the reptile community suffers from this. The dog community is like, I stopped breeding Crescent Canarios for about 15 years. And I've been with this breed since 1992. The only people I think that know more about this dog than me are the people in the Canary Islands. But that's just me. I've been obsessed with this dog, and it's not even my favorite breed. But the whole thing is, it's like, when you go to, well, actually, let me say this. What's a better way? What's a better way to put this? Is, and I just lost my train of thought, and I had a good one. I was gonna say, what was I saying? So we can backtrack, because that was a good thought that I need. That
you were saying it's within the reptile community and the dog community as well, but then your thought dropped off.
It's a mindset that exists now, and it's something I've been talking about. People ask me about it a lot, and it's like, I don't know. It's almost like a God complex, which I understand, because you have animals and you keep them in captivity, and they are, I call them dependents, because if you don't come in your room, like, they're dead. That's it. You don't open these kennel doors and feed and water them, like, they're dead. People don't even want to get insurance, but then they complain about vet bills and stuff like that. Like that. Okay. Yeah. So that's the thing, is like, this personality that is being created through social media is like, I have people, like, when I was pushing for the insurance, like, hard, and people were like, oh man, that's a great idea. You're right. I don't know. I haven't thought about that. Like, I would love to get my collection insured. I'm like, yeah, why not? But you got like $50,000, $60,000 or more worth of animals. If your house goes on fire, you're going to be on GoFundMe begging for money. Why? Right. You should be filing a claim with your insurance people. Well, that's what I was going to say. So some of the things that, like, I left and came back a decade and a half, and people were still having the same arguments that they were having when I left. And these are arguments that already have facts, but they're still arguing over these things.
Right.
And it's crazy to me. Like, how do you see progression in that when you can't even, you're debating about something that, one, you have no control over. It's already been set in stone. It's already done. But because you don't like it, and the reptile community is great for this one. Science matters, but it only matters when I need it to matter. Like, it's like, people are like, oh, well, I'm going to call it this because it sounds better. Like, okay, like the Temur python. We don't have a Temur python. It doesn't even come from Temur, but we still call it Temur.
Right.
It's, people might say, oh, that's not a big deal. It is a big deal, at least for me, because if my name is Boogaloo Shrimp, why do you keep calling me Jason? That's not my name. That is not my name. So if we can't even agree on stupid little facts like that, how are we going to get to the big stuff? And that's why I think that we aren't as far as we should be. That's why I said, like, I wanted to give the reptile community all the props in the world.
Right.
Because we should be dominating. Yeah, I'm not a fan of mutations. That's not my thing, because that goes against breeding ethically. You are breeding animals that are inherently sick. It is what it is. If that's what you want to do, they're your animals. I can't stop you, but I'm not going to not say anything, because albinism that's a disorder. That is not healthy. So you bred that and then you sold it. I mean, how many ads, when you go to people's pages and they say, like, how many people do you even see advertising healthy reptiles?
That's, and that's a valid point. You got to be really, really picky about that. And everyone is advertising, oh yeah, we got the healthiest reptiles in the world. It's like, but do you?
You did a video on Nido, I saw. And I've talked about Nido you have people who want to act like it doesn't exist. Then you want to have people who are like, oh, it's a government conspiracy. Maybe it is. It doesn't matter. It's here. So what are you going to do? You're still not testing your animals. And if you don't think that it exists, then you're not going to test your animals. And then let me not fail to mention that people will pretend to be your friends and snake you and send you an animal that they knew was sick. And I've heard of that happening over 36 times.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that is incredibly common.
So me buying animals or from people that I don't know, it's a hard, like, I just tried to buy some Halmahera pythons from a guy. He wanted one price for it. And I said, well, brother, I understand business, because, I run a business. I understand that. You got to make your money. But if you want that price, then I need a Nido test. So, or I'll give it to you for this price with no Nido test. And he got mad. Sometimes he don't even respond when you ask that. And so he was like, well, one, he's like, why do you need a NIDO test? I said, because if I bring it in my house and I'm irresponsible, then all my animals have NIDO. Now what? You know, like I got a lot of time.
You would think that would be common sense.
Well, you would think a lot of
You
things
would
would be
think,
common
right.
sense. And so I said, listen, I'm going to be straight up with you, brother. I said, I'll give you this for the animal. I said, I'm going to test it. If it tests positive for NIDO, I said, I'm throwing them in the trash. I said, I'm being straight up with you. I said, I'm putting them in the freezer and then they're going to go in the trash because I can't even feed them to my Cobra. I said,
it's too much of a risk.
I said, when you buy a dog from me or a good breeder, you get papers and you get shot records. I don't know what the reptile community's problem is. You got guys like Dan Malari, though. He's doing NIDO tests. I do see some people who are NIDO tests, but it's not a lot and it's not enough. So the lack of structure like that, and so when I kind of backtracking, when I said something about USARC, I was like, I just feel like that should be on the website, like NIDO testing. This should be there. We need to get reptile insurance. We need to do this. We need to do that, because that is the only way we were going to win. But people got mad. They flipped what I said. And then all of a sudden I became enemy of the state, which is fine. Right. I'm used to that. You know, I came up on the debate team. You know what I mean? So I'm used to that. I'm going to prove my point every time. But don't BS me when I got people who are associated telling me how great of an idea this is and it really would help, and then they ghost me.
Right.
Then I have to go back to people who have faith in that and tell them that, and then show them the emails, and then they're like, "Oh," I'm like, "Yeah, I wouldn't say that for no reason."
Right.
So then I started to understand why people were like, "You should be running this because you sound like you know what you're doing."
100%.
I would love to register my animals with you if you explain things like keep track of breeding, inbreeding, when to do it, when not to do it. You've got a record. You can create true bloodlines, and then you have something to fall back on. And then you also have people who are now like green tree python people, the Morelia people do it. I see some of the gecko people do it. They start to send like a pedigree that they've made, and that's great. But because you have no centralized registry, it's worthless. Because the dog, the papers don't make the dog make the papers, is what they say. But actually, they should go hand in hand, because you could have a great dog, but if he doesn't have papers, he can't go to the show. Even if his DNA test says he's 100% whatever. But if he's got papers and he could have a DNA test that's inaccurate, he can go to the show, as long as you don't tell him about that DNA test. So the whole thing is, if you're going to attach paperwork to your animals, don't use that to try to up the price on your people. That's not fair to your clients, because you don't have a bloodline. And I'm sorry for anybody hearing that. You can tell them I said it. And I'll tell them that I told you to tell them that you don't. Yeah. There are no bloodlines in the reptile community. Stop letting them tell you that. There are none. If they say that, contact me and tell them to send me the pedigree, and I will prove to you that you cannot achieve a bloodline through inbreeding and scatterbreeding. Humans are scatterbred, right? So after 7 generations of scatterbreeding, you are no longer tied to anything before you. So if you're only scatterbreeding, then you're not even going to get anything consistent.
Right.
You're not going to get any consistency. And then if you're inbreeding, the only thing you're doing is intensifying the traits you're doubling up. So anything negative or positive, you're putting it all there. But you are collapsing what your project or your program on itself. Because that just creates infertility and other neurological and internal and external health issues. People, and when I say that, they're like, "Oh, but I saw you with a monocle cobra." Like, yeah, no, duh. Because you can't find normal monocle cobras. They don't make them anymore. Even the ones that look normal are het for something.
Right.
So, it's, and even breeding the mutations, there is a way to go about it. It just takes longer.
And that's where people want to start cutting these corners and going,
Well,
oh, well, how can I get there quicker? It's the
well,
money.
It's money, and I'm trying to get on specific podcasts because there is a podcast that if you do not breed, he will not let you on. So, you know what I mean? And see, that kind of clouds things when all of you are affiliated with the same group. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Because there are a lot of people that don't like this person that I'm talking about, and for good reason. You know, in my opinion, he's bad for business, but he's got a fan club. Like you have a fan club. I have a fan club. That is what social media has brought. But I be telling people, man, don't follow me, dude. I'm a because I'll expose you on your own show if that's what it takes. Like
right.
That's me. I'm me. I'm gonna show up and be me, unapologetically every single time. And I'm just here for the animals. You know what I mean? Like that's my big thing. But like some people say and do things, and then some people do and say things, if that makes sense. And I think right now animals have an uptick because of social media. Like there are so many people. It's like I didn't go get anything and come to social media. I already had all this stuff.
Right.
I didn't even both of my producers, NWA Connie Corso, that is my main. He will tell you, I've had 4 YouTube channels. I got so many haters. Every channel I've had or Instagram page, they flag me till they take it down. So Joe contacted me for a podcast. I did a show. He was like, bro, I need you to come back tomorrow. I did another show the next day. He's like, bro, just bring all your stuff and just bring your stuff to my network. So that's where I've been. And they've been taking care of me over there. I hate social media. I never wanted to do this. Dylan will tell you, if you ever watch Animals at Home, the very first podcast I ever did. Yeah. I didn't even have an Instagram. None of that stuff. I didn't have any of that stuff. And I came on and it did great. And I was in my head, I'm like, dude, what am I doing? Like I never wanted to do this, like ever.
Right.
And now that I do it, I understand like the need for it because there's so much, like, how many more ball python care videos are you going to make? How many more leopard geckos or emerald? Like, I understand panel discussions, but most of the time they're just talking about the same thing over and over. And I've consistently come with how to properly breed, how to do genetics charts. Like, why don't we have this? Why aren't we doing this? Like, this is what we need. Like, we can talk about the animals all day, and that's great. But we already have the animals. We already have them. So how are we going to ensure longevity? That's what I'm trying to do.
That's the question right there. And I think everything that you've said up to this point is, like you said, it is for the animal. And that goes back to the same way I think is like, regardless of the situation, that animal comes first. The health, making sure that it is a safe, healthy animal to bring around my other animals, making sure that I know, the breeder. And that's another thing we had spoken about a little bit earlier is how it's wild, even to me, how you can buy any animal you want and you don't even have to talk to anyone. I don't trust that. Well, I want to see that animal.
And so people, I said that to someone, they're like, yeah, but back in the 90s, I said, yeah, but we didn't have the internet wasn't like it was. It
wasn't so advanced.
I was like, we didn't have all of this. Like I remember calling Tom and Glades Herbs and Diamond Reptile Importers and all of these guys and sitting on the phone with them for hours. Or buying snakes. Like so this is the process. It's like you get a reptile magazine, right? You look through it in the back, you see what you want, you call them, then you got to get a price list. Then they send you the price list, and that takes like 2 or 3 days. And like almost everything was like Cali, New York, and California, but it was mainly Cali and Florida. Cali and California. Just call it that. Anyway, Florida, California, and New York, because those are the 3 main ports. And then Texas is like number 4, but mainly California and Florida. So you wait 2 or 3 days for the price list to come in the mail. And then you're so excited. I remember it coming home, and then it'd be crazy when it'd be like a reptile magazine in the mail with a price list that I ordered. Because I'm like, oh, I don't know which one I want to look at first. But anyway, you open it up, and then you're going through this, you unfold in this price list, and you're looking at it, and you're like, oh, can't afford that. Like, where's my range at? Where's the $2 range at? Like,
right, that way. Oh, exactly.
So you find out what you want, and then it tells you it's like 5.8. So then you call, right? You call. And then they answer the phone, and then you're like, yo, can I get a carpet python? And they're like, we're all sold out. Because in the 3 days that it took for you to get the price list,
everyone else bought them up.
Everybody who already had price lists who got theirs before you, they sold them all. Yeah, so
man.
Yeah, so that was the process. And then you're like, okay, what about these? And they'd be like, okay, you get this, but you didn't get to see anything. But when I think about it, I never had any animals come in that were like messed up. I didn't start seeing the messed up stuff until I actually started importing myself. Because now I've got like 2,000 animals in a box and like 100 of them are dead. You know what I mean? I'm trying to get my money back, or the first time, like $5,000, just get ripped off. I should have known that number now doesn't even sound right. But, but yeah, anything that I bought, like, it was clean. It looked like captive bred, but I catch wild stuff just around where I live, and even that stuff is pretty clean. So, but as the demand for these animals, and the more they have to grab them, and with the abundance, the treatment, as time went on, like I got Phylomedusas here, and these are probably, I've had them 3 times, and hopefully these will make it. But the other ones that I've had over the years, like they will come in. Like, I remember I got some from underground. I probably shouldn't have said that, because now I'm you have to forgive me. Like, I don't like filter. I don't know what that means. I'm just me. But I was gonna say, like, I bought some from underground, and like, granted, they did tell me they were messed up, but they were pretty messed up. I mean, it looked like
they're like jacked up.
I mean, like, yeah, they were bad, but it's underground, where your reptiles end up underground.
Right. Exactly.
That's what happens. But yeah, they were like, within like 3 weeks, they were both dead. Like, they wouldn't eat, but the mouth rubs were so bad. And even me treating them like with the betadine and the neosporin, like the time that it needed to heal, like when did these last things did they even eat? You know what I mean? Right. Like, I have no idea. And then the other thing is, like, you always hate when you get that animal and then it dies. Like, they're like, oh, it's an LTC. We've had it for 2 months, and then you get it and it dies 3 days later. That's because that parasite load has been brewing in there like Starbucks coffee, and now they finally get it to you.
Right.
And now that's it. But another thing that I don't like, again, if you buy an animal, a dog or a cat, it comes with paperwork and it's dewormed and all that stuff. There are people on Morph Market that literally say they are not going to treat the animals that they sell you while they are in their possession.
I have actually seen listings like that,
like,
on Morph Market. Yep.
How? So you're just gonna let it? And again, so that's when people, when you get that animal, when you get that gecko or whatever, and you're all excited, and then it's dead in 72 hours. That's why. Because they're telling you, we're not going to do it. They said it. We're not going to do it.
The warning sign is right there. It's not like they're hiding it. It's right in front of everyone's face.
You have to be mindful. You have to really be mindful. Like, this is your money. It's your money. It's your time. Drill these people. If they hang up on you, did you really want to buy an animal from them anyway?
Right. Ask those questions.
You know how many NFL players or NBA players or people who just egotistical have come to try to buy dogs or animals from me over the year, and I'll kick you off my property because I don't care about that money. I'll give somebody a dog or a snake for free rather than sell it to some bozo. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, but that's just how I am. I had guys come, you don't know who I am. I'm so and so and so.
Oh, your title means nothing if you're not going to take care of the animal.
Let's see how fast you can run then when I let these dogs out, NFL star. So, but that's, so it's there's a lot of showboating out. I know people who were like, I don't think I've seen so many venomous snakes being balled up in a short amount in like the last 2 years at any point in time. I've been doing venomous for 15 years. Like, I've got bush vipers here. I'm a cobra fanatic. You know what I mean? So, now everybody's got venomous stuff. And
Right.
I'm not, and I'm not knocking. Oh, God, I'm not used to that thing yet. I'm not used to so I'm old school. So I bought an automatic mister for the first time ever because I am the mister.
Oh no.
I'm like, what is that? Like, and then I look over and it's this thing.
It was like raining down in the back.
Yeah. So yeah, normally I gotta come in here, but this guy he doesn't, this enclosure was never made to stand on its end like this. So the door sometimes makes a lot of noise when I'm pulling it down because it's supposed to open this way and not like this. So I had to do a lot of modifications. And this whole thing was made from like scrap wood. Like the whole thing, just like leftover scrap wood that I had. Yeah,
That's
6
pretty
by
rad.
2 by 2. I was gonna wrap it. Like I had this wrap. Oh, it's over there. I was gonna wrap it, like do like a camo wrap on it. And I have another. I had 3 more that I built, but then I didn't. Like this one is funny because it leans. Like it's on that syrup. This one's on the syrup because, well, like I said, it was scrap wood. So
there's a reason. It's solid.
Right. But yeah, so I don't know. You said 115, though. I got long wind. So if that's your time, that's your time. But I'm known for like 3-hour podcasts. So
Oh no, you're good. I actually didn't even notice the time.
But
We are at our hour 15. I have really
I
enjoyed talking to you. To kind of close out, let's hit one more question.
Sure.
And I think you're going to actually like this one, is what role does education play in changing how people view exotic pet ownership and just pet ownership in general?
Reading is fundamental.
That one.
Hooked on phonics worked for me.
I'm dying. That's true, though.
I mean, I would say at this point, like this is what you can do. And me being a consultant, this is something that I do and then I tell all my clients, especially my animal clients, like you should have a portfolio for every dog or species of animal, for every single one. Like you should know your animals in and out, everything about them. But not just about them. You should also know about their habitat because we forget about that. Like environmentals are important. So educating yourself on the environmentals of what you're doing, especially with dogs and things like that. Like reptiles are pretty much like at the peak of their evolution. So you don't see, we're not going to see anything with them. Like dogs are still like putty. They're a soft gene animal, as opposed to a hard gene animal. You're just, like I said, you just don't see it. So, but knowing your animals, knowing where they come from, what's going on there, and finding the older information. Like there are so many old versions of books in PDF form. Like if you can't find them, I have them. I have a reptile book from the early 18th century. Like I have books going back to like 1819. Because I used to sell subscriptions to my digital library. I have like over 2,000 books. It's just like spiritual dog books, animal, like books on plants. Like, I mean, like really old, rare books, like vampire lore. Like if you're into like vampires and werewolves, and I got all that stuff. So
it's rad.
You see, she's gonna be in my DMs. That's what happened now.
I'm gonna be creeping in there like, hey, what's up, buddy? No.
All right. But man. But creating a portfolio about what you're doing with your animals for yourself. It's like, especially if you plan on breeding and selling to people, because in a sense, what you're doing is you're creating an instruction manual on what you did with your animals. And if you are selling an animal and you make a real bloodline, who can better represent you than you, or your animal than you, because you already wrote everything down. This is what I fed it. This is how I did it. They used to do that. And we need to get back to that, and comparing the old information to the new information and trying to lay that on top of each other. And then at the same time, using your own brain power and trying to figure out what's what and how to, kind of reassert, reassign, and restore things, like get back to the basics, but with the twist. Like education is key. You know what I mean? Like it's like save the trees. Trees are the things we need to breathe, So you
Right.
gotta,
Exactly.
you need it. So you do that, make a portfolio, and that way, and it also gives you, a lot of people are doing podcasts now. It gives you a lot to talk about. It actually creates a lot of structure, and it also helps you create better regiments in your own daily thing with and without your animal. So that's what I do. Like I have stacks and stacks and stacks of notebooks and paper. Like now I don't do it so much anymore. I try to keep a lot of stuff up here, but I don't breed anymore. And if I do, the only thing I breed here are snails, and anything animal that I would breed would mainly be for myself and maybe
Right.
a few people, because the only thing that I would probably breed here may be tree monitors, or I thought I was going to get more snail eaters, but didn't happen the way I thought. So maybe next year. But yeah, you get the old books, get the new books. You got a lot of information free online for the PDFs, and make a library, print stuff out. Like, buy the old reptile magazine. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm in the process, like every month
Absolutely.
I go back and buy those old reptile magazines. It's actually a lot more for me to reminisce. It's not even about the magazine's information. Like I'm definitely going to reread them again, but it's more so me trying to find memories in those. Kind of like on the Butterfly Effect. He was reading in
Absolutely.
his book and he was going back. Like, so I've been looking
Yeah.
for the magazines from like 93, like on up to the early 2000s. And so I can go back and yeah.
It's wild you say that, because in this drawer right here, I actually keep this magazine from the year I was born.
Oh, that's the first one, I think. Wait, is that the first? Because the first one is also an iguana, but that's an annual one, right?
Yeah, this is from this is October 94. This is the Chinese water dragons.
Okay, yeah, okay. The glare. Now I see now. Okay, yeah. So that's the one.
That's my life right there. I love it.
Yeah, that is it. No, like, and we need that. Like, I thought for a while they had stopped printing because everything kind of started going digital, and then I stopped seeing them in this bookstores and Dog Fancy, Dog World. They stopped, now, like even like High Times, like I don't really see that anymore when I go in, but we don't really have bookstores anymore. It's like that was I used to work at the bookstores, so I had all the books, like, that was my thing. But now we don't have bookstores anymore. They don't.
Right, and honestly, nothing compares to it. Nothing compares to a book, a magazine, like something you could pick up and read and just like absorb everything.
Yeah, for sure. I love the books. I mean, I like the digital stuff is cool because you can put so much stuff in like a little space, but it's nothing like having that book in your hand and turning that page. So plus, if you need to roll your blunts on it, like it's always good for that.
That's what I'm saying.
If reading isn't fundamental for you, then you can just use it.
It goes both ways.
It can go both ways.
I love it. Well, I think Chris said he had one more sponsor that he wanted to roll. And then we will kind of close out for the night.
Sure.
Cool. Oh, yeah.
Catalog. Okay. See, yeah, there you go. Like that's what we need. And that's and so many people have tried to do that over the years. It's the problem. The reason why it doesn't work is because there is no centralized registry. US Arc is not a registration. They are a nonprofit organization. So my thought was when I started doing the registry that I was going to merge with them. Right. And then we were going to, but I'm thinking that they thought that they might get swallowed up, which I could understand that, but then you just rebrand. If we're making $100 million a year, then we can do like the new titles, like Super Speed Killer, Snake God, 555-9129, the police. But so, they are an organization. They're not a registration. So you have to understand that. And so that's why, because a record, like in for like your AKC, FCI, UKC, all these registries, these animal registries, it's a record. It's a record for you. It's a record for them. It's also, the stories are there. And it's also a way to keep track and to go back and say, okay, well, so they were doing this, and that time. I know the reptile thing isn't, like I said, the soft gene versus hard gene animals. So it's going to work a little bit differently. So obviously you have to fine tune it, but there are still ways to produce the best ball pythons, the best blood pythons, the best green tree pythons, the best, like, what's her name? I think her name is Jessica in Germany.
Okay.
She's been on Animals at Home a couple times. Like, you talk about a breeder, a master breeder of leopard geckos or fat tail or leopard. I can't remember which one she had. Nobody is touching her. She has a standard for her.
Wow.
For her, she has a real bloodline. She is the only person that I will say or allow to say without saying anything that has a real bloodline, because she wrote down everything she did. She has a program. She soft calls. She does not breed anything that does not fall in, like a dog breeder or a horse breeder or a chicken breeder or a cat breeder. That is how her animals are mutated. Again, there's a way to go about it. And she'll tell you it takes a little bit longer. But in the long run, if you are going to breed mutants, that's the best way to do it.
Right. Do it safely, do it ethically. If it takes longer, it takes longer. But if it's for the benefit and the health of that animal,
well, that's
that's
thing.
all that matters.
You don't even know how long your animals are living. You don't even know how long your mutated animal is going to live.
Right.
Because it died at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. But we know ball pythons were living 50, 60 years. So how are all the ball pythons now dying at 15, 16 years? Well, there you go.
That's exactly why. And then we're left with a bunch of sick or, just unwell animals.
Same thing with the canines. People all the time are like, bro, you can't really talk about having a breeding program or a bloodline until you're like 4 or 5 generations in. Like I can't buy a python from Nick Mutton and then buy a python from you, right? Because this is what happens. And this is the same thing with the dogs. And then I breed them. This is a snake you produced. This is a snake that Nick produced. And I'm not Nick. I have no problem with Nick. So I don't want anybody to just so I take Nick's snake and I take your snake and I breed them together. All of a sudden, I have a bloodline. How? That's your animal. This is an F1 outcross. Carpet python from you, carpet python from him. I do not have a bloodline. I have an F1 scatterbred animal. That is an outcross. So until I bring in another female and start doing the proper mathematics 3 to 4 times, I do not have anything generational that is being bred properly. And that's just what it is.
And that's just science and facts.
What's genetics? And that's the thing is then they argue with me and I'm like, are you a geneticist? And they're like, no. And they're like, are you? And I'm like, yes. And then they're like, oh. And I'm like, yeah. That's why I only told people that this year that I actually minored in genetics. And then all the challenging kind of stopped after that. Right. I'm like, yeah, because a lot of people in herpetoculture are cosplaying as biologists and herpetologists. Like, bro, you work at McDonald's, bro. I'm
always telling people. I'm always telling people. I'm like, listen, y'all don't listen to me for advice. Like, don't do it. Like, you can if you want, because there's some things I know what I'm talking about. But like, I'm not a professional, and I cannot stand. Yeah.
Well, there's nothing wrong with being humble and telling people what you know and what works. But you have people out here who are really like they think that they're a scientist.
They think they know every fact behind it.
And as soon as you say something that doesn't align or they don't like, they start attacking. Those are the people that I'm talking about. Everybody should be learning every day. But again, I think social media also is fueling that mentality because anybody can start a YouTube channel. Anybody can go get reptiles now or dogs or whatever. And then all of a sudden you'll get like some people think that I should have 1 million followers. A lot of people think that. They're like, bro, you should have way more followers than you do. And I'm like, bro, I ain't even here for that. Like, but I understand it, but then they have to understand, like I just said, I'm not here for that. I go on channel. I just, like I said, I did a podcast and then I got off the podcast. And then like a day later, this guy who's got almost 1 million followers hits me up and wants me to come on his show. So I don't need a channel.
Right.
I just need to do, like when I went on the Gecko Exchange, immediately after I did that show, 2 people contacted me to come on their show. That's how it always happens. So I don't need to do a podcast. Like, I like coming on other people's shows and talking, but I do have a channel that's great. Like, if you like hardcore, no nonsense, like in your face, like I said, no BS, no games, tricks. Yeah, come on and watch Unscripted NWA, Connie Corso, all day.
100%.
Or, I mean, for Meg to have me on here, like, we're new to each other. I'm sure might have been I'm sure we'll probably be talking a lot more now, but let me shut up because we're 15 minutes over. I'm gonna owe these people overtime.
You're good, man. No, I appreciate you honestly coming on and talking to me, and this has been an extremely informational hour and a half. This has been awesome. But yeah, I will definitely be hitting you up. I'd love to come on the Unscripted at some point.
Oh yeah, we get wild over there. You can smoke and shit.
Oh, I'll be doing it. Believe me. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you. Everyone, please tune into Unscripted Podcast and make sure that you follow Untamed and Unhinged Reptile Podcast as well. Thank you, Rain, for coming on.
Anytime.
Y'all have a rad night.
All right.
Fangs out by the